The AHRC Creative Communities programme explores the transformative power of cross-sector collaboration for culture and inclusive innovation in the devolved policy contexts of our 3 nations and 12 mayoral combined authorities in England. Hosted by Northumbria University, the programme is developing a new evidence base on how and why devolving culture and R&D can enable growth, address regional inequality, enhance belonging, and equalise opportunity. Since 2012, the programme has generated new evidence, shared learning, and enabled new collaborations across sectors and with communities, all designed to create new cultural R&D across all 4 nations of the UK. In May 2023, we delivered By All for All, The Power of Partnerships, a new deep dive report drawing on more than a decade of AHRC-funded community and cross-sector collaborative R&D. The report explores how we can unlock the potential of engaging communities and partners as researchers. But what is a creative community? A creative community describes collaborative cross-sector R&D that brings together diverse partners from communities, government, education, arm's length, third and private sector organisations in a place-based collaboration, one that delivers new culture, creates value, and generates economic, social and cultural spillovers, both for the partners involved and for wider society. As a delivery mechanism for R&D, creative communities are characterised by the involvement of a diverse range of stakeholders and sectors. Together, they work to build a cooperation network for skills exchange, spreading models of partnership working, and thinking about other professional environments. While levels of expertise, forms of engagement, location, depths of partnerships, and purpose all vary from region to region as well as nation by nation, the Creative Communities model provides a flexible and inclusive approach, nurturing new, diverse partnerships for long-term sustainable networks that focus on co-creation. A key focus is this new context of devolution and what this makes possible for R&D and culture across the UK today. A core aim of this programme is shifting research funding and powers into the devolved nations and regions by harnessing devolved policy making and the new Trailblazer deals in England to help cross-sector communities take back control of their own culture and innovation story. Structural changes to organisation and models are needed for us to adapt to this new landscape of devolution across our regions and 3 nations. Lots of funding continues to operate in a very centralised way for what is now an increasingly devolved UK. By committing to growing a more collaborative and inclusive R&D ecosystem, the Creative Communities programme is thinking through ways where we can embrace diverse voices and share new insights, thinking about devolution as a really powerful lever we can pull to catalyse knowledge generation and growth.
The first round of the Community Innovation Practitioner or CIP Awards came to an end in September 2024. The aim of the CIP Awards is to generate new knowledge on how and why engaging cross-sector partners in research and communities as research partners can enhance the quality, resilience and sustainability of our research ecosystem. So in 2023, Creative Communities awarded £290,000 to 5 CIPs across all of the 4 nations of the UK to work with cross-sector stakeholders and communities with the aim of generating new culture to enhance community cohesion, bringing insight on how funders can better devolve funding, empowering local communities to come together around shared goals and forming more equitable ways of working in research. Through partnership working and embedding the award in pre-existing AHRC Impact Accelerator accounts, the CIP aimed to connect and extend knowledge exchange and impact through developing networks and produce knowledge that would inform practice as well as funders and government policy. Over the last 12 months, the 5 CIPs have worked with government, private, public and third sector partners to deliver new cultural research aimed at enhancing local belonging and pride in place and opening new access to collaborative R&D. The core outputs and activities of the CIPs have included regular network sessions, as well as podcast training and co-development from Vic Turnbull at Mike Media. As a result of this hard work, the new Creative Communities podcast series and the CIP case studies and devolved policy papers provide really timely evidence on the value of cross-sector partnerships working to deliver cultural innovation and community cohesion in devolved contexts. I'm going to hand over to Vic Turnbull at Mike Media now, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about her work with the CIP cohort.
Hi, my name is Vic Elizabeth Turnbull, and I'm the founder of Mike Media, an award-winning podcast production and training agency. Over the past year, Mike Media has embarked on a unique and ambitious project to train this wonderful group of community innovation practitioners to create their own podcast episodes that make up the brand new Creative Communities podcast. The goal was to provide a platform to their communities, their projects, their voices, to share their stories, and importantly, inspire many more people to take a creative communities approach where they live. My role in the CIP pilot project was twofold. I was the facilitator, podcast expert, helping hand to guide the CIPs to create each of their podcast episodes. Then as an exec producer to help bring everything together in post-production along with the Mike team. The project kicked off in September 2023 with a series of training workshops that we delivered over 6 months. We equipped the CIPs with the essential podcasting skills, like interviewing techniques, how to record great quality audio and editing. But it didn't stop there. We didn't just train the CIPs and then go off into your communities and record something. We created a collaborative co-creation environment. It's where we together brainstormed episode ideas. We distilled them into concise formats. We crafted compelling narratives, each to ensure that every episode had a unique angle. And time, space, and clarity were all key ingredients in this process. The reality is that if you want to create a podcast like the Creative Communities podcast, there is a lot of behind the scenes work. And again, rocking up with a microphone and recording whatever just wouldn't have worked. Our approach when we make podcasts with clients is to make the process simple but methodical. So we provided really clear guidelines. We offered support at every stage, and we ensured the CIPs had those clear plans for their episodes. So armed with their plans, we went on to production. The CIPs went out into their communities to record interviews, sound effects, and background noises that would bring their stories to life. Throughout all this, our team was always on hand to provide technical support, equipment advice, creative guidance. And when everything was recorded, all the files from everyone, all the CIPs, were sent to the Mike team. And there were lots and lots of files. So then we moved on to the post-production phase, the editing bit. And this was a real collaborative effort as well. The Mike team, including me and our producer Helen and Jamie, our editor, who's both worked on award-winning podcasts and in the BBC, use their expertise to put the episodes together. The scripts, the voiceovers that you hear on the episodes, they were co-created with the CIPs and the Creative Communities team, and we professionally recorded those voiceovers with the CIPs as well. So creating the final episodes, the editing process was a really iterative process. We listened, we cut, we listened, we swapped, we listened, we changed. We listened and swapped and changed until we loved what we heard, until it made sense. It's very different to create something for the ear than it is to create something to be read. But throughout all this, we stayed true to the vision of the CIPs. I think the podcast episodes serve as a really powerful complement to the CIP's policy papers and case studies, and they bring them to life with real voices, real stories. And the podcasts allow their research to be heard by new audiences and to make their research accessible as well. The podcast features such a wide range of voices representing different perspectives, thoughts, and experiences. And I reckon there's over 100 different voices featured throughout the series. And it's been a real remarkable journey. I think back to our first meeting in September. There were lots of questions flying about the place. What's it going to sound like? How long is it going to be? How am I going to tell my story? How are we going to make it concise? And then through to trusting the process and seeing the project through to completion. There has been so much hard work gone into this new podcast series, and we're so proud of it. One of the most inspiring things has been hearing that some of the CIPs now want to use podcasts more in their practice. That's just brilliant. So it has been a real pleasure to work on the CIP pilot. I think we've created something really special together. Now, do us one favour right now if you can. Click on the QR code. Go to the podcast. If you're on Apple, rate the series and leave us a review. If you're on Spotify, you can also give us a rating on there and leave a comment on an episode. Then hit share. Share with your colleagues, share with your friends. It really does help more people to discover and be inspired by these stories of community co-creation. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that, Vic. Now, I'm really happy to hand over to our CIP cohort, who you can see here. We have Alexander Langmans from Swansea University, Georgina Asgard, who's been working with the University of Liverpool. We've got Jim Donaghy from Ulster University, Anya Brady from Queen's University Belfast, and Gaston Wellish from Glasgow School of Art, who's been working with the University of Glasgow. Each of our CIPs will be giving a short presentation on their work. Afterwards, we'll hold a panel for questions. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask them, please submit them via the Q&A function, and we'll pick them up and include them in our session later on. Thanks so much, and over to you, CIPs.
Hello everyone. Our Creative Communities programme sought to address the two place-based health challenges of trauma and substance use, using the arts and creativity to empower community to break cycles of silence around both. Based in the Market community in Belfast, residents worked with our Creative Communities team to create a photographic exhibition telling the story of life in their community, and I'm going to quickly take you through our journey on that project today. The project was led by Queen's Communities in Place, which is a place-based research initiative within Queen's University Belfast, and our partners in the Market Development Association, which is the lead community organisation in the Market community. I was Community Innovation Practitioner for the project, and I was responsible for project delivery. Some of my core activities included managing our creative partnerships, recruitment of participants, facilitation of sessions, bringing additional resources to the project, and the co-creation of the photographic project. And then also a big part of my role was capturing knowledge through inclusive research practices. So step one of our project was actually building our creative community, and these are all our project partners here. Our project emphasised equitable partnership and co-creation, integrating community experience, academic knowledge, arts and cultural expertise to empower our participants. It mobilised a place-based response to the challenges of substance use and trauma, and it aligned with national and regional strategies and learning to maximise impact. As I've said, our project took place in the Market, which is a working class community in inner city Belfast with a population of around 2,500 people. Over the last 20 years or so, there's been an explosion in substance use issues in this community, along with a sharp rise in related deaths through suicide and overdose. This is compounded by high levels of intergenerational trauma within the neighbourhood, something exacerbated by the legacy of the conflict in the north of Ireland. The key transmission mechanism for trauma and substance use is silence, and the community identified a need for interventions to challenge this head-on. They were clear with us that this should be done in a way that was engaging and accessible, and they dictated that an arts-based intervention would be the best way of doing this. We therefore set about working together to co-design an intervention that would use arts to break cycles of silence and stigma. And some of our activities. So using a community-based participatory research approach and taking a trauma-informed approach, the project employed arts-based co-creation, including drama, creative writing, poetry, visual mapping and photography to explore cultural responses to trauma and substance use. The methods enable participants to share their stories, build a collective narrative and foster community trust and connection, enabling open discussions on trauma, substance use, mental health, belonging and civic identity. The project culminated in a co-curated photographic exhibition called The Market, A People's Tapestry, which was displayed in April 2024 for 3 weeks in a city centre arts venue called 2 Royal Avenue. And in that 3 weeks, it attracted just over 7,000 visitors. The exhibition also gained significant media coverage, raising awareness about community challenges and tackling stigma around trauma and substance use. And this is just some pictures of the launch night you can see here. So in terms of findings, our Creative Communities pilot has broken cycles of silence around trauma in the market community by using arts-based methods. This empowered participants to express aspects of stigma and shame related to trauma and substance use. Our place-based co-creation approach created a safe space to discuss these challenges, highlighting the transformative power of art and culture. As a Community Innovation Practitioner, I saw how arts-based research captured complex experiences while managing cross-sector partnerships like the one with the Market Development Association, increased community engagement locally. This project showed the potential of arts to address things like depression, addiction and trauma, sparking further interest in such initiatives from local people. But rather than me tell their story, listen to what our participants had to say in the podcast that we made together for the project.
It gave me more confidence in myself, more self-respect for myself, love and care for myself, and it helped me in a big way. I'm very thankful for getting involved.
Builds your confidence as well. See, before I ever done this group, I wouldn't have been able to speak in front of a camera. I wouldn't have been able to speak the way I'm speaking to you now. I see if my friends would have took out their phone and the camera, I was automatically like putting my hand up, hiding my face. Like I was just scared to be seen.
I think it's also fair to say as well that even though most of us, in one way or another, were living with the impact of addiction, poor mental health and trauma on our lives, we would never in a million years have spoken about it this openly to one another, let alone anyone else in the market. It's something we've just carried around without ever really speaking about it. But in no time at all, we ended up looking forward to come to the community centre every Wednesday night. We done things like poetry that felt really weird at first, but then we ended up loving it. We laughed a lot and we opened up about some of the most painful parts of our lives, and to be quite honest, I wasn't expecting this project to impact us in the way it has. In a way, we rediscovered the market, and now we see it in a way that we haven't before. We've seen our people's hurt, their vulnerabilities, but we've also seen our people's incredible strength, our pride and our unending solidarity with one another.
And in terms of impacts, our Creative Communities project and the resulting tapestry exhibition gained significant media coverage on TV, radio, online and social media, and as I've said, gained over 7,000 visitors in the 3 weeks that the tapestry project was on display. This raised awareness about community challenges and tackling stigma around trauma and substance use. The impact of the project has had a ripple effect across the community, with more families wanting to join in phase 2 of the tapestry project and growing interest in arts-based initiatives locally. There's an increased engagement with partner agencies and interest from the local community research network in Belfast to utilise the tapestry project as a blueprint and roll this out across our communities. This momentum has led us to securing additional funding for future projects, ensuring that the legacy of the Creative Communities project will continue to amplify community voices and address public health issues through storytelling, song and performance. As well as that, there's an ongoing legacy for the SIP pilot. For example, it's now embedded into the wider Tackling Substance Use Together programme within the market community, and local community organisations have begun to adopt creative methods into their place-based health, education and community wealth building programmatic work. A toolkit of the project is also being developed. This is called Amplify and will be adopted, as I've said, by the newly established Community Research Network in Belfast as their first project. There will also be a second phase of the Tapestry project with a community drama and documentary about the creative journey that this neighbourhood is going on. And now I'll just end with another clip from our podcast that we made together along with the participants.
My community chose to address the problems of legacy, trauma and substance use through creative methods because we think these create a solid bedrock on which to build and sustain connections. And we firmly believe that building strong connections to each other, our land, the knowledge and culture and the economics provides the best way possible to unroot the impacts of colonialism and legacy in our community and to address the complex health and economic issues they've created. And when you underpin these creative methods with research, as we've done with the Tapestry project, what you begin to do is create an evidence base and a blueprint that other communities experiencing similar problems can pick up and adapt to their local context.
Thank you for listening, folks. Happy to take any questions after.
My Community Innovation Practitioner project was focused on heritage at risk, creative communities for sustainable, powerful places in South Wales. And what's the context for this research work? Well, it's the dramatic decrease in funding on culture that we've seen across Europe. And in this recent report from 2024, it picks out the two-tier Europe that's emerged in terms of cuts to funding, with some nations, particularly in the south, making cuts of between 30 and 35%. And the UK very definitely falls within that category of nations. We're seeing cuts, or have seen cuts rather, between 2010, 2011 through to last year, of between 30 to 32% in cultural services. And in Wales in particular, we've seen some of the most extreme reductions. And in fact, on top of funding of cuts of around 30 to 32% since 2013, we saw a really dramatic cut recently in December 2023. And these have put, and this is not my words, this is the words that you'll be able to pick up in the case study, these have put statutory heritage services at risk. So that's really where the project was positioned. How can we make heritage more sustainable? But more so, how can we involve communities in that process? Because involving communities is the answer. Key partners here were the Friends of Craig Gwladys Country Park, Neath Port Talbot, which owns the park in effect. Wonderful manager there called Lisa Kerman, who's been invaluable to everything that's gone on there. We've also worked with Neath Port Talbot Group of Colleges and Cardigan Bay Architectural Conservation. Now, I'm not going to say too much about this because you can pick up on this from the case study that's published on the Creative Communities website. And also I've done a blog on there called Putting the Making in Place Making. And there's a video here, a YouTube video on the Centre for Heritage Research Training at Swansea University, our YouTube site, where you'll get a feel for what that project involved. It was a community of practice, people coming together from the local area to see if we could renovate or at least stabilise the ruins of a late 19th century Victorian smithy. So do go and look at what we achieved. I'm really here just going to talk about some of the key findings. I think the major finding really was that traditional historic environment services are not delivering value as directly as they could. Historic environment services really are constituted to engage in the management, monitoring and maintenance, the 3 M's as I call them, of the historic environment. That's buildings, that's monuments, that's landscapes. It's about statutory protection. It's about guidance. So all of that's quite tight in how we deliver it. But of course, the way in which that's delivering amenity and public benefit is kind of intangible. And in some cases, there's the risk that actually by investing in all those things, we're neglecting communities and an animosity grows up between communities and those sites. So what we really need to do is to place communities in a co-created way more centrally in the delivery of heritage services. But of course, how we're going to do that is that we have to work, especially here in areas of deprivation that we have in parts of South Wales, but of course across the UK as well. We need to offer some kind of support services for how that happens. We need to offer scaffolding so that communities can begin to step forward and take stewardship of heritage assets, so that they can be involved in those assets in wider placemaking strategies.
I think it's really important you've got community buy-in. The communities is what's going to help move that forward. You need their opinion, you need to understand, because it's all well and good, you know, we're professionals saying this is what we should do and this is what we're going to do, but what's the point if that community doesn't care about it, or it doesn't link to them, or doesn't mean anything to them? You need to get them involved. So co-production, co-creation is the key to heritage now. We can't be having this hierarchical structure of us coming in, doing it to them. It needs to be the community telling us what to do, you know, and flipping those kind of power structures, you know, on their head. It's the community who's in charge, and we're just the facilitators of that.
That was Esther Lewis, who works in heritage at Neath Port Talbot, and I was just really impressed with Esther. She's young, she's from the area, she's got a real sense of what heritage means to people there, and it was an absolute delight to interview her for the podcast. And the whole podcast experience, I think, was really... It was great because in some ways it unlocks that kind of emotive response to the idea of heritage. And I think that's what, you know, sometimes surveys are a bit dry. And that's where the podcast was great, because we tapped into some of that emotion, and it really was illustrative of how passionate people feel about the past, about the heritage assets, and about the stories of their place. So what are the impacts and I think forward-looking developments? Some of those immediate impacts is that Swansea University, the Centre for Heritage Research and Training, has informed the heritage strategy, which has just been published by the local authority, and we're also sitting on the board responsible for the delivery of that strategy, with a focus on skills and training. We're partnering in Shared Prosperity funded and National Lottery Heritage funded feasibility projects around heritage assets, which is exciting, so we can start to take some of these ideas forward. And we've had early stage conversations as well with CADU, which is the Historic Environment Services branch of Welsh Government, about collaborating on place making strategies at properties in care in areas of deprivation. So it's all a good start, if you like. But where I want to finish really is on the potential for impact, but also for kind of changes in policy. The origins of historic environment services can be seen here in this photograph. It's a photograph of the first inspectors of ancient monuments, or the so-called men from the ministry, at the investiture of Prince of Wales at Carnarvon Castle in 1911. And we still have inspectors of ancient monuments. And in so many ways, we're still in the thrall of conservation principles that were devised around this time. And I think that's where I'm going to leave this. Who is heritage really for? This is the question for Wales in a devolved policy context. We need to ask ourselves whether heritage here wishes, or we wish our heritage to be governed by a set of conservation principles devised to legitimise imperial and colonial ambitions for an aristocratic elite during an age of plenty, or do we want our heritage services to be indexed to innovative and future-looking legislation that has at its heart the well-being of future generations? And I refer, of course, to the Act, the 2015 Act, a very innovative piece of legislation and a great opportunity for heritage services here in South Wales. So check out the podcast, check out the case study, and thanks for listening.
Hello, I'm Georgina Asgard, a cellist and music and health practitioner. My CIP research took place across 3 settings in Liverpool, which are part of Merseycare NHS Foundation Trust Life Rooms, a social inclusion centre, a high-security hospital, and a community library. This work is part of an ongoing evaluation of a remarkable 16-year partnership between the Liverpool Philharmonic and Merseycare. Over 8 weeks in each setting, I facilitated weekly collaborative music sessions that culminated in a co-produced performance. The aim was to explore how music collaboration and co-creation can support people facing mental health challenges and promote well-being within our local communities. I wanted to create a simple research framework based on 5 key principles that can resonate with anyone, whether you're participant, musician, academic, manager, or policymaker. Here is how it worked in practice. Connection was about building trust and relationships beyond background or diagnosis. At the heart of every session, it was about human connection. Collaboration was about co-creating music based on participants' voices. Creativity was triggered through deep and mutual listening, using shared stories and feelings to inspire new music. With a kind of anything goes approach, creativity gave freedom for self-expression. Commitment was shown through the dedication from everyone involved, which really drove the impact, and with care, we nurtured the human experience through live music, and each moment with kindness and compassion. This framework guided everything we did, uniting us through the power of live music. I'd now like to share with you practical examples of co-creation. At St. Dunstan's, the CIP activities were groundbreaking, marking the first time Merseycare social inclusion team provided a creative outlet and a sharing platform for people accessing a food pantry. There, I had the privilege to connect with Roma families and individuals from Afghanistan, the Middle East, Iran, Italy, Poland, Trinidad. The positive outcomes of this pilot project were driven by cultural exchange and collaboration between participants, musicians, and staff. In this high secure division setting, I engaged with some of the most restricted participants in Merseycare. The beauty and novelty of classical music clearly inspired participants, boosting creative confidence without fear of judgment. Adaptability, flexibility, and empathy were crucial to the co-creative process, allowing participants to leave a long-lasting legacy through their musical compositions and artworks. In a restricted environment, freedom of expression became of ultimate importance and really made co-creation thrive. In Walton, informal chats, bit of humour, plenty of fun, that's what really powered the creative process. Co-creation was all about learning from each other in a safe space. Everything we created was shaped by a person-centred approach, keeping the focus on each individual. Individual ideas became group ideas and somehow made loneliness turn into togetherness. And ultimately, it was a sense of ownership that truly fueled those co-produced performances. After these examples of co-creation, it is essential to emphasize that this work begins with authentic collaboration between participants and musicians. So for us musicians, it's crucial to continuously refine our practice, feel supported to do so, and remain connected to a broader community. These insights emerged from a workshop I facilitated with 7 practitioners in the Northwest region. And to finish with, back to my 5 C's, so that we can shape policies together. Let's connect, improve communication, and truly listen to those with lived experience. Collaborate, promote research partnerships, and co-produce the way we commission services. We need to co-create tools for healthcare musicians and co-create research methods. Let's commit to practically and contractually value practitioners in academia so that we can improve access to creative health for all. Last but not least, promote holistic care with a focus on early intervention. I believe these steps can drive real change. These research findings can be heard live on my podcast. Creating the podcast was a true highlight of my CIP research. I am deeply passionate about amplifying the voices of those with lived experiences, ensuring they reach a broad audience. For me, podcasting is not just a tool, but an essential research method, particularly in the field of creative health. With the invaluable guidance from Vic Turnbull at Mike Media, I am thrilled to have co-created a podcast that respects and celebrates the lived experiences of my participants while contributing meaningfully to these vital areas of research. I will finish this short presentation with the voices of my participants.
This is so beneficial to everybody because I think it feeds your soul in a way that medicine doesn't, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's been the single thing that has helped me heal with mental illness, with depression, and I just can't imagine what my life would be without music.
We need to give people purposes, that there is a life out there, and I think the word says it all, doesn't it? It's about life. This is a room for you to discuss life.
The word hope really springs out to me. I think it's a wonderful word. I think what we do here is brings hope, which is a tremendous springboard to life.
Rhonda, do you have anything to add? Any punchy message to our policymakers?
Just to say that music, singing, instruments, collaboration brings joy, fulfillment, delight, pleasure. The world's in such chaos and turmoil, and these pockets of joy are to be treasured, encouraged, and financed. Bring the money on, keep it going.
A nice phrase, that, pockets of joy.
Pockets of joy, I like that, yeah.
Pockets of joy in a coat of love.
Hello, I'm Gaston. I'm the Community Innovation Practitioner for the Arts and Humanities Partnership Catalysts at the University of Glasgow. The Catalyst is a knowledge exchange programme which is designed to bring research out of the university and into society. It facilitates meaningful collaborations between academic researchers, third sector organisations, and public and private sector stakeholders. Each Catalyst addresses a chosen theme through a series of free workshops where 20 to 30 partners progressively identify key challenges and assets, co-create future visions, and develop actionable strategies. It aims to match-make academic research with non-academic practitioners and organisations to exchange knowledge, ideas, and insights. The core idea is to create what we call a community of mutual interests. Before I joined as Community Innovation Practitioner, the Catalyst had completed 2 rounds of workshops. The first was Digital Cultural Heritage. This series of workshops focused on the preservation and accessibility of digital heritage. Number 2 was Food, which aimed at promoting sustainability, heritage, health and tourism related to Scottish food. After I joined SCIP, we conducted 2 more catalysts. Number 3 was Mental Health and Wellbeing, which explored the value of the arts and humanities in addressing mental health and wellbeing. Finally, number 4, which is Governor Parish Church, is the focus of my presentation today. It represents a shift towards a place-based approach in our catalyst model. To better understand and contextualize the catalyst, I collaborated with the team to articulate the process and value more clearly. This led me to propose and conceptualize what I call the AAA model, derived from the pre-existing 3-part structure of the first 3 catalyst workshops. The initial phase, Assets, focuses on articulating existing assets, relationships, and ideas. Through a collaborative working group, participants map out these elements and discuss potential initiatives to align with wider communities. The second phase, Augment, aims to connect the initial vision with a broader network of stakeholders. By brainstorming a collection of future visions, the workshop builds connections and co-creates narratives that aim to illustrate collective aspirations. This phase serves to share ideas and build upon the initial insights gathered in the assets phase. The final phase, Action, is dedicated to refining the collective vision into a detailed action plan or series of refined project ideas. This phase focuses on transforming the collaborative insights and identified synergies into more actionable steps and tangible outcomes. Alongside and before and after this AAA, 4 emergent Rs, or relational roots, represent elements less visible to participants. the relationship building efforts which make the workshops and network possible. Why did we choose to focus on Governold? First is that Governold sits within GRID, the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District. This is a major area of investment which is aimed at stimulating industry-academia collaborations. It is a £1 billion redevelopment project, which is led by the University of Glasgow, Scottish Enterprise and Glasgow City Council. Finally, the project builds on the archaeological research conducted by Professor Stephen Driscoll. His work has been key in encouraging local engagement through archaeology. Governold was a very significant ecclesiastical centre in Glasgow, dating back to the 9th century. It houses a rich collection of early medieval carvings, which are known as the Govan stones. Part of the CIP activities was to introduce new place-based research methods in this catalyst. We introduced Derive walks, inspired by the Situationist International, which allowed participants to navigate Govan, guided by emotional and sensory responses rather than predetermined routes. These walks helped ground our research in more relevant spatial experiences and provided an experiential understanding of the context for the subsequent workshops. For the Governold Catalyst, we held 3 workshops structured around the AAA model. In the first workshop, we started by mapping the existing assets, networks and relationships within Governold and its partners. The focus was on identifying the strengths already present in the community, like the Govan stones, the church's role within the community and its connections with other local heritage organisations. This gave us a foundation to start thinking about future possibilities. The second workshop aimed to broaden the scope of the conversations we already had started. Here we connected the mapped assets and futures from the first workshop with a wider network of stakeholders and academic experts. Each participant gave a brief 1-minute overview of their work. Their introduction helped to quickly establish common ground, and it highlighted the potential areas for collaboration. We organized the participants into 4 discussion groups, each focusing on one of the themes that emerged from the first workshop: heritage, community, tourism, and place regeneration. The final workshop was about turning these ideas into concrete, actionable plans. Each group then used coloured blocks to structure their project proposal and context, focusing on defining clear aims, stakeholders, actions, and expected outcomes. But due to the lack of Govan-based voices in the room, it was decided to leave these briefs more open-ended rather than producing strict proposals. One key insight from this workshop was the need for deeper community involvement in future iterations and initiatives. While we had strong representation from heritage and academic sectors, there were fewer direct contributions from local voices. Several participants stressed that ensuring Governold's future success requires local leadership and community needs analysis. To wrap up my presentation, I'll play a clip from the podcast we produced where you'll hear Cheryl McGeehan talking about her experiences of participating in the Mental Health and Wellbeing Catalyst.
My name is Cheryl McGeehan and I'm a senior lecturer in human geography here at the University of Glasgow.
I asked Cheryl why she wanted to participate.
So I think the Catalyst provides a really good opportunity to experiment with bringing community partners into the university and to have a kind of setting where collaborative potential was offered. And I think for me that really spoke to the heart of my research, which is to collaborate and to find new collaborations and to think about how collaboration can be different or experimental. So it offered me a really good opportunity for that.
She says that the most valuable part of the sessions was the collective aspect.
So I think the coming together was really important, and I think it was facilitated really, really well. There was lots of creativity there, which I really appreciated, us sort of trying to think together and trying to think in a collaborative and collective way about what we were trying to achieve. And I think having a goal and having an opportunity to think forward. So yeah, it was a really good opportunity to challenge my perceptions of what I've been doing over the past decade, but also to join in some conversations with people that were like-minded and had kind of common themes and common goals in their work.
She also found that the visual tools of the Catalyst really added value to the dynamic of the workshops.
Yeah, I really liked when we were working in groups and to have the participation from the art school I thought was really genius and really important, because I think having a visual mapping board, I'm not quite sure what the technical term is, but to have something visual to work through as a group, I think particularly helped facilitate conversation between academic and other partners, because I think sometimes if we're always speaking just in words, it can sometimes be intimidating, it can sometimes be confusing. So I think to have a visual prompt was really important and really encouraged us to think in a kind of mapping way. So I find that really effective, and certainly something I would like to use going forward when I'm working with communities as well.
Hi, my name is Jim Donaghy. I'm a research fellow currently at Ulster University in the north of Ireland. And this is a brief showcase of my Community Innovation Practitioner work alongside the skateboarding community in Portrush. My key research partners have been Slaney Brown, a local videographer and longtime skateboarder here, and Causeway Association of Urban Sports, a campaign group who have been lobbying for dedicated skate park facilities in the area for about 15 years. You'll hear from both of them in a few minutes' time. The CIP research developed out of ongoing co-creative research with the skaters. The creativity in question is the artistic practice of skateboarding itself and the videographic documentation and sharing of the culture. Using Slaney's extensive collection of historical footage of skateboarding in Portrush, we engaged the contemporary skateboard community in a critical dialogue on the heritage of skateboarding here. As the project developed, we also undertook an initiative to collectively refurbish the DIY-made skate infrastructure that occupies Station Square in Portrush. This was about upskilling the skaters, improving the skateboarding experience, and encouraging a sense of self-respect among the skaters to take themselves seriously as legitimate users of public space. Here's a little montage to give you an idea of our work and to add an extra counter-cultural dimension. All the music featured here is by local musicians closely associated with the skateboard scene.
Realize at the time of these were simpler days, with the need to dismay, we just want to land trace. So much talent laying dormant in this keep up with rush. Nobody could see it, cause they couldn't wake up. Well-educated fools from surrounding schools, studying for revocation and breaking the rules. Done a lot wrong, but a lot more right, with positives in the shadow, bring it back into the light. Causeway rebel, rising up for travel. A causeway rebel, fucking with the sign levels. A causeway rebel, rising up for travel. Causeway rebel, fucking with the sign levels. We're the last gang standing. We're the last gang standing. We're the last gang standing. We're the last gang standing.
The key findings of the project have been centred on the do-it-yourself energy that underpins skateboard culture, especially in contexts where that culture is neglected by local decision makers responsible for providing facilities and services. We focused on harnessing that DIY energy towards community self-empowerment, and our policy recommendations follow this tack as well. In fact, returning the term policy back to its roots as shared management of resources. When repeated appeals to top-down policymakers have been frustrated, grassroots policy action emerges as an effective solution that empowers local communities. The dialogue that emerged in and around our co-creative research activity also helped to sharpen the skaters' understanding of gentrification in their seaside town context, termed as resortification. The contribution of the research project was the capacity to zoom out and take a wide lens view at the various dynamics affecting the use of public space in Portrush. This enabled the skateboarders to find common cause with other local communities afflicted by resortification in Portrush, and to better understand how the wider issues around divestment of public land into private hands was directly affecting them. Next up is a clip from my CIP podcast featuring Slaney Brown and then also Rose Smith from Causeway Association of Urban Sports. They reflect on some of these key contributions of the project.
This project simply wouldn't have been possible without Slaney's extensive work to sift through the archive material and shoot new footage to put the old images in dialogue with the present-day skateboarding scene. Slaney reflects on the changing context and changed attitudes to skateboarding since he started skating in Portrush in 1995. He talks about the ramps, the increased confidence in his work, and joy at seeing the reaction from the community.
I think it was about 2 years ago, ramps started turning up at Station Square, and I was amazed that they stayed for the whole summer. It was brilliant. Eventually the council took all the ramps, and there was a big outcry by all the locals. I was amazed watching the outcry online, because growing up here as a teenager skating, I couldn't believe that parents and wherever were suddenly behind the skaters, and then it hit me that, oh my God, I'm one of the parents. I'm 45 now. I went, oh right, they're all the people we grew up with that have been seeing us skate Portrush all these years. They're now the people that have kicked up a fuss against the council. So getting into this research project, it was suddenly for years of me making videos and thinking, where do I go next? But yeah, it's been great to suddenly have a lot more confidence in what I've been doing since I was a kid, which is playing with video cameras. Been messing with videos since way before I even started skateboarding. So yeah, it's brilliant that it's always been there, and it's just reopened it all for me and got me back to it again. And all of this kind of community stuff we've been doing with the skaters, I've noticed that the younger ones are fully into it. They all want to know, they want to learn how to build ramps. Yeah, and it's just great seeing the reaction in the group chat. Whenever you're like, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that, and then you see how many people are coming down, it's good to know that we're all here together.
A close relationship with CAUSE has also been essential. Rose reflects on the Community Innovation Practitioner collaboration.
You've provided us with a lot of energy. You've provided us almost with a bit of validity in terms of, you're coming from an academic perspective. And so that's fresh for us, and to look at even your insight in terms of the work that's going on elsewhere, it gives us a bit of a context. And also seeing what we're doing fits in somewhere, in terms of a journey.
I chose this clip to keep my research collaborators' voices to the fore in all aspects of this project. It's my name that gets attached to all the outputs, but it really has been a process of co-creation, not just with Slaney and Rose and everyone at CAUSE, but the wider skateboarding community. The skaters continue their campaign for a proper skate park in Portrush. We haven't got there yet, but the community's been re-energised by this project's interventions, and the issue has been given a more prominent platform. Thanks to everyone at Creative Communities for the opportunity.